Spam, the renowned meat that comes in a can, is a culinary enigma. While some recoil at its presence, others embrace it as a beloved mealtime staple. But what's the story behind this mystery meat, and what keeps it so popular? During World War II, as the population of many countries were starving, Spam, with its calorie-rich content and convenience, emerged as a precious lifeline that proved indispensable in saving millions of lives. No one could anticipate the global affection for Spam that would follow. Yet many didn't realize its bumpy origin starts with cuts of meat that nobody wanted. But before Spam was even a blip in the scene, the stage for its debut was set into motion by George Albert Hormel. Born on December 4, 1860 in Buffalo, New York, to German immigrant parents John George Hormel and Susan Decker, young George had a very early introduction to hard work. After school and on weekends, he worked at his father's tannery, processing sheepskins into leather. By age 13, George could perform any skilled task in wool pulling or tanning and grade wool and leather almost as well as his father. Unfortunately, the family business took a massive beating during the financial crisis of 1873 and the ensuing economic depression that George needed to quit school at age 12 to find work so he can supplement his family's income. And so began a stint of low-paying manual labor as George moves around from one low-paying job to another. Eventually, George went to work for his uncle Jacob, who had recently opened a meat market in Chicago. George learned how to process and pack meat in his uncle's market. In his memoir, George noted that his uncle was a hard taskmaster and exacting employer who had no patience with coddling the young. His hours were long and the work exhausting. At a busy time, he often worked 14 hours at a stretch. At the end of the day, he tumbled into bed like a felled ox. When morning came, someone often had to literally kick him out of bed to wake him up. George often wondered how he stood that killing pace as well as he did, but credits working for his uncle for learning things he might otherwise never have learned so thoroughly. At age 19, George moved to Kansas City in search of a higher-paying job. However, contrary to his expectations, finding work in Kansas wasn't easy. After weeks of searching, he finally secured a job as a wool buyer. But his good fortune was short-lived, as the company's owner embezzled $100,000 of company funds, leaving the company bankrupt and George without a job. George later found work as a traveling hide buyer and relocated to Des Moines, Iowa. His assigned territory included northern Iowa and southern Minnesota. After several years in this position, George began to tire of his transient life and wanted to find a place where he can settle down and start his own business. Both George and his father believed that owning a business was the best way to achieve financial success. He just didn't know yet what type of business. An opportunity arose in 1887 on a business trip to Austin, Minnesota. He learned that a customer's meat market had recently burned down. The owner rebuilt the shop but no longer wished to operate the store. So with $500 borrowed from his boss, George bought a share in the Austin meat market and went into a partnership with the owner's son to open the Friedrich and Hormel meat market in October 1887. However, differing ideas about how to run the business later prompted George to part ways in 1891. So at age 31, George used the money from the dissolved partnership to establish his own packing house on the outskirts of Austin, where he founded G.O.A. Hormel and Company. He specialized in pork packing, which was a strategic decision. During his years operating the Friedrich and Hormel meat market, George tracked every piece of meat sold, and his data revealed that pork had the least waste because all parts of the pig could be used in some way and had the greatest profit potential. Over the years, the company had become one of the largest independent meat packers in the Midwest. But in 1921, the company would encounter a setback that would push it to the brink of ruin. George's only son, J.C. Hormel, was going over the books one day when he found an oddity which later revealed that an assistant controller had embezzled over $1 million from the company. The sum vastly exceeded the company's cash supply. Jay announced to his father, "Dad, I think we're broke." Furious over his own lack of oversight, George knew he had to make drastic changes to save his business. Swift actions were taken, which include begging the bank for a loan, firing his top executives, and giving Jay more control over the daily operations of the company. While George was a pragmatic leader, his son Jay was an idea man who envisioned new products, new marketing and sales strategies, and new distribution methods. In particular, Jay focused on products such as ready-to-eat foods that could be sold directly to the consumer. While traveling in Europe in 1926, Jay met with Paul Yearn, the owner of a meat processing plant in Hamburg, Germany. Paul devised a method of curing and sealing whole hams in cans. Recognizing its huge potential, Jay convinced Paul to assist him in Austin in the development of canned ham. With Paul's help, Geo, A. Hormel and Company introduced the nation's first canned whole ham in February 1927. The development of canned ham launched Geo, A. Hormel and Company onto the national food scene and led to more new products in quick succession. Spiced canned ham in 1927 and canned whole chicken in 1929. In 1927, George retired and appointed Jay as acting president of the company. Jay assumed full control of Geo, A. Hormel and Company in 1929 when he was elected president and continued to focus on the development of convenient, ready-to-eat products. With the Depression hitting hard on people's pockets, Hormel's line of canned products began to slip badly. Jay needed a new plan to turn things around, and he found it in surplus meat. During the early 20th century, proper refrigeration was not as widespread, so convenience and speed in cooking were highly valued. Nobody wanted the tougher and fattier pork shoulder cut because it took so long to cook. Because of this, there was a surplus of pork shoulder that was mostly going to waste. Jay saw an opportunity to turn this surplus meat into a new product by mixing pork shoulder and ham with salt, water, sugar, and sodium nitrate, transforming this unwanted meat into a convenient, ready-to-eat meal in a can. Now it just needed a catchy name. Spam's famous name was conceived at a New Year's Eve party, where guests were rewarded with an alcoholic beverage for each product name entry they could come up with. As the night went on, the suggestions kept getting better, until Kenneth Daigneault, the brother of a Hormel Company vice president, came up with the winning name that earned him the $100 prize for naming Spam. The meaning of the name is commonly believed to be a combination of the words spiced and ham. Speculations abound with theories such as, it's short for shoulder of pork and ham. But nobody really knows. Hormel hasn't confirmed any of the rumors, keeping its aura of mystery by claiming that it's only known to a small group of former Hormel executives. Spam was launched in 1937, targeted to homemakers as a cheap source of protein in a convenient 12-ounce can. Right away, consumers embraced Spam as lunch and breakfast meat eaten at home. In its first year, about 17% of the country had tried it, and by 1940, 70% of the country was buying it. While gaining popularity at home, it wasn't until World War II that Spam was thrust into the forefront of American life and beyond. A convenient source of protein that was easy to ship and didn't require refrigeration was exactly what the military needed to feed its hungry troops in the battlefield. Hormel shipped up to 15 million cans of meat per week overseas during the war. However, the soldiers soon grew tired of eating canned meat all the time, drawing the ire of soldiers, calling it the real reason war was hell. Meatloaf without basic training, and ham that didn't pass its physical. Other nations, though, were a little more grateful for Spam. Wherever American soldiers were stationed, they introduced Spam to the local population. Many of these countries still eat Spam to this day, transforming it from a wartime necessity into a beloved culinary symbol. In the Philippines, Filipinos creatively embraced Spam, incorporating it into iconic dishes like Spam adobo and Spam sinigang, earning a prominent place on Christmas and New Year's tables as a holiday treat. Spam made its way to South Korea during the Korean War, where American soldiers shared their rations with locals. One of the most famous dishes, budae jjigae or army stew, was created, featuring Spam, hot dogs, and other ingredients. And Spam is considered a premium gift, especially during Chuseok, the Korean Harvest Festival. It gained popularity in Japan after the war, with dishes like yakisoba, okonomiyaki, and bento boxes. It is also enjoyed as a snack, readily available in convenience stores. Hawaii's deep-rooted love for Spam is attributed to the presence of the U.S. military, where iconic dishes like Spam musubi and Spam loco moco have become local favorites. Its annual Waikiki Spam Jam Festival celebrates Spam through food vendors and entertainment. And Spam is an essential ingredient in Guamanian cuisine, where it is featured in numerous dishes. Spam kala gwen, a citrusy and spicy dish with coconut, is a local specialty, and Spam fried rice is a beloved comfort food. Whether you love it or hate it, Spam's story of humble beginnings to its worldwide influence is a testament to the transformative power of food. It has been woven into the cultural fabric and a symbol of resilience and adaptability, influencing traditional dishes and creating a sense of connection between the past and the present.